Okay, so cybersecurity is our topic today, which we could spend quite a long time on. So we've got a fair amount of questions to get through anyway. So in terms of what it is, I mean, it's a frustrating topic because it's vitally important, but it's not one of those things someone can say, okay, I've done everything I need to do. I am now totally secure forever and a day. It's an ongoing thing, a bit like the cliche about painting the fourth bridge, as soon as you finish, you've got to start again. So just sort of, I guess, explain how frustrating or, what organizations need to be aware of in terms of cybersecurity so they don't get complacent and think, yeah, we've got it nailed down.
Sure. Yeah, it is a constant battle, cybersecurity. It's going to be a journey for all organizations. So I spend my time working with large organizations to help them figure out ways to reduce this risk and to overcome this challenge. Being completely secure and protected today is not a single point or an end state. It's going to be gradual, and we're going to continue to evolve over time. I think instead of looking at it as a negative or a battle, I think we can reframe this as a positive. I think the better we become at defending and protecting our organizations, the more easily we can look to recover and build resilience. I think we've learned a lot from the years of COVID. And while I don't love to make a lot of parallels between cybersecurity and COVID, I think we can learn from what's happened, mistakes that were made, and really how we can really build collective resilience. I think the same is happening in businesses and enterprises today. I think we just saw the White House released a new cyber strategy, and it seems vastly different from what we saw before. And I think that's showing that this is evolving and changing. So what we're seeing with that strategy is new collaboration with software, hardware, and MSPs to reshape the cyber landscape in favor of greater security and resilience. So I think that's a step change from putting the onus on enterprises or organizations that are not necessarily in a position to build resilience in the way a technology provider may be, and opportunities for the likes of Dell in that space. So in a nutshell, let's not look at it as negative. We're all in this together. There's a lot of learnings. Let's fail fast, quickly, and then build resilience.
And the focus seems to be, to your point, this end-to-end security is being talked about a lot more. I mean, is there general agreement as to what end-to-end security might look like, or a bit like the edge, if you talk to 10 different people, you'll get 10 different definitions of end-to-end security?
Yeah, I think just collective agreement on anything in cybersecurity, unfortunately, is not there. We're seeing a step change. I think regulators and governments are helping play a role in standardization of terms and of processes, but I think end-to-end security probably means different things to different people. But when I think of end-to-end security, I think of seamless security. So not having to think about it as a user, making it really easy for me to be secure, not making it burdensome. And that's a really difficult thing to achieve. I don't think we're there yet. But I think what has changed is awareness around how to embed security into everything that we do from the beginning. One time someone used the example of a slinky with security. So they said, we invented the internet, and then we thought about how to secure it. And we've always been one step behind. And so what I think about with end-to-end security is really integrating it from the beginning. So not having this slinky effect, but instead we create an app and we think about how we will secure it and the life cycle of that experience, and what ways we are going to safeguard that data all along the way. So yeah, not general consensus, but that's my opinion on end-to-end security and what it means.
And are there sort of widely available, whether it's vendors such as yourself or organizations, associations, are there sort of some recommended sort of, well, not standards, but models, I guess, that at least people can start with? I know individual organizations might have different priorities and problems, but are there some kind of frameworks that they can at least start with to give them the basics of what they need to do and then sort of become more sophisticated as they understand their individual needs?
Absolutely. There are more frameworks available now. I think, unfortunately, cybersecurity is still not a one-size-fits-all solution or strategy. It's going to depend on the sector, the risk appetite, the investment required, I think the best way for organizations to develop a cybersecurity model is to speak to peers, to speak to experts in the space. I think there's a lot of really great insights coming from some of the leading consulting firms that talk about, for your sector, what your peers are doing is X, and the first step we recommend is as follows. I think what we're doing, Dell, is really getting good at providing that technology and then working with ecosystem partners, so consulting firms, public cloud providers, other, maybe even competitors to us, to develop wrapper solutions for specific industries, be it, telcos, financial services. So I think it's getting really specific around the industry, what they need to protect, what they need to be able to deliver, any regulation. But yes, it's out there. There are some models. It will still depend on the client.
And also, I'm guessing a lot of companies, in essence, cybersecurity is a bit like insurance. So when you could spend your whole year's wages on, just in case insurance policies for every eventuality in life, but most of us work out what's likely to happen and less like. Similarly with security, it's a sort of cost versus risk equation. So are there any sort of general rules? Do you think people, for example, underestimate the cost of something going wrong, and therefore they often think, well, that's a bit expensive to deploy this security solution, not realizing that if they do have a breach or whatever, it's going to close down their business or have a fairly disastrous effect?
Yeah, cost and risk always comes up. Where to invest? I think we saw cybersecurity spending in the last 5 or 6 years went up, and now I think organizations are looking more carefully at where they're putting dollars and what are they putting those dollars next to. And I think when we work with organizations, we kind of help them to see what is it that you're putting money against and what are you actually receiving from that. So what's the value of that investment? I think we've seen historically a lot of organizations have overinvested in really what we would have called prevention, and not really invested as much in how would we recover. And I think that narrative has changed and it's evolving. We're seeing more organizations want to ensure they can recover something. But I think for a while that was seen as failing or as security failing. If they weren't able to prevent, what was the point in having something to recover? And now with how prevalent these attacks are, how sophisticated, and frankly, how easy they are to impact an organization, we're seeing this new focus on recovery. And I would say to a client, if they're listening, I think focusing on recovery is key and typically an underinvested area.
And in terms of some of the sort of trends, you mentioned that sort of slight switch of focus, but zero trust has been around for a little while now and seems to be gaining momentum. Do you think it is a helpful sort of focus for companies? Are there any downsides, or does it make a lot of sense for people to take that as one of their sort of pillars of cybersecurity policy?
I think it's great. Zero trust stems from this idea that we can no longer trust users inside or outside the network. So we need to never trust, always verify. And I think that's a great thing. I think what I like about zero trust is it's more of a philosophy than a set of rules. It has things like know your architecture, know your users, know the health of your users, use policies to authorize requests, things that I think, are not being carried out enough. But I think similar to resilience and security, zero trust is a journey. I don't think you can implement zero trust completely in an organization. It's going to be iterative, using a variety of different technologies and people and teams. So I think it's great, but it's not the answer. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet here to becoming resilient.
And another thing that seems to be growing in importance within a lot of organizations is this multi-factor authentication. Again, not necessarily a particularly new idea, but there seems to be growing acceptance that it does make a lot of sense, and biometrics technology sort of moved on a pace. Do you think, I suppose put it one way, is there any excuse, if you like, for an organization not to be sort of investing in multi-factor authentication and just relying on good old-fashioned passwords, or is it really important as part of your digital journey that multi-factor authentication is embraced?
I think it's really important to be embraced. I think there is, of course, a security element, but there's also a user experience element. I'm sure, Phil, you have MFA or multi-factor authentication for all your banking apps. I do, and it's a game changer because we have so many passwords these days. It's really hard to keep up with them, and then to keep them, advanced or long enough or complex enough to be able to, keep updated. So I think having MFA is not just helpful for the business in terms of safeguarding, but it also kind of fits into what we were talking about with seamless security. So making it really easy for people to interact with online banking or other sensitive applications without, being really, really tiring going through lots of different authorizations. So I think some insurers now demand that companies have basic protections like MFA in order to receive cover. I mean, the cyber insurance market is a completely different topic of conversation, but I think it is important and is an easy enough thing usually to turn on. So why not do it?
And you mentioned earlier the recovery thing. I mean, my background is storage, so business continuity, disaster recovery has been around since, I won't say since Noah was building his art, but for a long time. But a surprising number of companies still don't necessarily get what's required or even implement it properly. And I know there's been a talk more of cyber resilience, which tries to sort of hook up cybersecurity and storage, backup, recovery. Where do you see, where people are you surprised that more people haven't sort of worked it out, or where are we with that sort of resilience part of the security process?
I'm always surprised in the cybersecurity space, but that's the role that I have working with organizations big and small. You'd think they did X, Y, and Z, and you're always very humbled to find out that they haven't. I don't blame them though when it comes to disaster recovery and the ways in which organizations protected their data for the last 20, 30 years. We're seeing a complete step change when we talk about cyber resilience, and I'll explain why. So disaster recovery is great in the event of a hurricane or a power outage. But in the event of a ransomware attack, we're spreading that data as quickly as possible from one data center to the other, leaving both data sets unusable. So we are now faced with a new threat that doesn't fit in the model of how we traditionally protect data. And that's really where we come in with some of our strategies and solutions around isolating critical data sets off the network and the importance of that. But that's a new solution, a new strategy. And I think like anything new, there are people that want to continue doing what they know or feel that traditional protections are good enough. And I think it's really important we say that those protections are still needed. We still could have power failures, we still could have natural disasters, but the likelihood of those compared to some of these new risks, like a catastrophic or severe but plausible catastrophic cyber attack, is much higher than some of these other risks that used to be really important. So we do have to change and adapt. And I think your question is, do companies still not get it right? Of course, but I think we're seeing many realize they need to have a clear view of their most critical assets, have them protected off the network. And this is going to be different than what they've done with backup or DR or business continuity. It's really about cyber resilience and recovery.
And I mean, a lot of the focus at the moment is on those sort of malicious attacks from outside, but inside the organization, employees, I mean, okay, there are some malicious, but a lot of employees just through their day-to-day work, regrettably, do the classic opening an email that they didn't ought to, etc. Do you think that angle, again, is, whether surprisingly or not, because we seem to daily read of the disasters, and I'm sure everyone's told regularly, don't reply to something or don't open a file if you don't know where it's from, etc. But are you surprised that employees aren't better educated or better looked after by the enterprise? Or what do you see as the scenario, and how might that be improved so that everyone is better equipped to deal with what they might encounter in their daily work?
Sure. I mean, I think cybersecurity is a team sport now. It requires a village. It's no longer just the security or IT team's responsibility. It is the whole collective business. And sure, I do think employees being educated and having the proper training and awareness is important. I think though, when I really think about the role that people play in security, I don't know that they're the sole reason we're seeing lots of problems. I'm sure there are people clicking links and things, but it does seem these threats are pervasive. And even if we have, the best people that are all really informed about what to click and not click, there will be some other way people will find to get into that network and do damage. I think if we look at people, what I see the risk as more than, clicking a link, it's actually the talent shortage around cybersecurity. I think we need many more people in this field doing different things. We need more women in cybersecurity. So that's what I fear about people is not them fat fingering something, but not enough people in the cybersecurity space to help with all of these problems and challenges.
Okay, and in terms of the one of the other challenges, I guess the pandemic brought it to sort of very much front and center. The extended enterprise, which was already beginning to happen. I say obviously the pandemic accelerated that, but that just seems to add a whole new level of complexity. It's one thing to try and control what comes in and out of one building or office environment, but when you then multiply your office environment by as many employees as you have, depending on where they're working from, etc., the problem just gets a whole deal worse. So what on earth, or how on earth, does a company sort of get to grips with what's required in this new sort of environment?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the role of zero trust, really. It's this idea that we can't ever trust. There is no really clear perimeter, what's in, what's out. So we need to design something that's a bit more agile, that takes into account different systems, services living in different places and different locations. And I think it also requires a lot of different expertise. It's not just going to be, as I've said, security running this program or IT running this program, but I think it means any line of business owner or any senior leader needs to have awareness around cyber risk, needs to consider what data sets they need to run their part of the business, what's most critical, and be involved in building a resilient enterprise and a resilient plan. So if anything, I think it's created this environment where we're all accountable, where we all need to work together. And I think it is possible to become resilient that way. And it was bound to change. So I think it's a good change and we should look at it that way.
And in terms of the future, we're in the digital age, but we've got, the edge I mentioned earlier, that is potentially, going to explode at some point. We keep getting told, I'm sure it will one day. And then you've got AI, IoT, etc. So, without wanting to sound too gloomy, in addition to everything else we've discussed, there's a whole new set of aggravation, if you like, coming when this truly digital, we're digital, I don't know, 1.0 or whatever it is, but when the next sort of level arrives, it's just creating some more headaches again. So again, what sort of optimistic message can you give to people in terms of how to deal with that?
Sure. I think AI and IoT is going to be groundbreaking in the cybersecurity space. I think it's going to help us. I think we're going to have a lot more insights, intelligence, and ability to react quicker if we have, really intelligent AI sitting at the edge that's able to stop a threat actor in its tracks or to report it quickly. And so I think, we're really just at the beginning of what could be a much more secure world. I also think more of the technology built in the last few years has considered security. As I mentioned in my previous example of the Slinky, a lot of the technology that we've had for a long time, the legacy systems, we thought about safeguarding it after we built it. So I think there's an opportunity for a world where we're able to accelerate much quicker because security is built into everything we do. And I think we're going through a challenging time of getting there, but I am a technology optimist. So I think we have a lot of exciting things ahead, and AI and IoT are only going to accelerate those.
And maybe in summary, in terms of an organization's expectations, once upon a time it was theoretically, I suppose the focus was on making sure no one gets into your organization. Perimeter defense was the be all and end all. It was theoretically possible to stop anyone getting in. Now I think it's moved and people accept that at some stage your defenses will be breached. hence you talk about resilience. How do we deal with an attack or breach when it, what impact it is and how we minimize that. So I guess if you can summarize, what should people reasonably expect? Some IT guys giving somebody else a hard time, you shouldn't have done that, and now this has happened, or should it be more accepting that things will go wrong, if you like, cybersecurity wise, and it's more how we deal with it? Just what expectations should an organization set for itself, its employees, etc.?
Absolutely. I think the ego needs to leave the room, the boardroom, the security room, the IT room. No matter how much money or how smart your teams are, things are going to happen. So it's really going to be when, not if. I know that's the expression we all kind of hate now, but it's true. So I think really what organizations need to do is have a plan. What are you going to do? And that's where I think there is really no excuse. Now we need a plan, and you can't say, we didn't know this was going to happen, because it's happening to everyone. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to call? What's the process? What are your most critical systems and services you would fail to be a business without? And again, these are not things all organizations are thinking about. So I encourage them to do this. I think the regulators, especially in financial services, are already there with this message. We're seeing the same with critical national infrastructure. Governments are stepping up. So we're seeing this collective understanding that this is important, but have a plan. That would be my guidance for any organization.
And just perhaps one more finally, in terms of Dell yourselves, do you think the fact that you have, I don't know, fingers in many pies, if you like, a lot of the IT supply chain, hardware, software, does that give you an advantage in understanding, as you say, because cybersecurity is really not an isolated topic now? It does impact on lots of software, hardware, other areas, if you like. So when people are engaging or looking to engage, clearly there are lots of cybersecurity people do some great things, but is it helpful to work with at least one organization that has a fairly broad, comprehensive view of the IT chain as opposed to individual parts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing consolidation in the cybersecurity space, people wanting a few key strategic vendors to help them to reduce risk, to build resilience. And I think Dell's well placed to do that. I think even bigger than that is our experience, particularly around catastrophic cyber attacks. It's a space we've been in for about 11 years, and all we do is help organizations build their minimal viable business. So the key services they would need to be able to recover in the event of a catastrophic attack. And we have a lot of expertise in that space, not just, building those solutions, but building that recovery run book and plan for what we would recover for second and third, just re-stand up your business after an extinction level event. So I think experience as well as breadth are two of the key things that make us a really good partner in that space. We also work with a lot of people, so we're not an exclusive team. I think we work with the cloud providers hand in hand to make sure that these solutions work well in the cloud. We work with the consulting firms that are helping drive the strategy. We work with our competitors. So I think this is a no ego landscape. We need to help with the problem at hand, address those challenges head on. And things that we might not be able to do, we want to bring other people in to help. So those are kind of the three things that I think Dell has that hopefully make our clients want to talk to us, work with us, and be successful.
Okay, it's been lovely to chat to you. So I appreciate you giving me the time, Elizabeth. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.